13.2 is looking like a preseason patch as we have major updates to ADC items, a plethora of fighter item changes, and so much more. To break it all down, we've gathered our challenger players and have analyzed the most recent data to cultivate the most accurate tier list for the majority of ranks. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. Let's start things off by covering the AD carry item alterations, as Blade of the Ruined King is the first one changed. Ranged on hit damage is going from 8 to 9%. The Siphon bonus magic damage, however, is being changed from 40 scaling to 150 to 40 scaling to 103. Cooldown on the passive is up from 20 to 30 seconds as well. Definitely a nerf for melee champions, as they don't benefit from the on-hit damage buff, but for ranged characters, the outcome should be close to power neutral or a slight nerf. Infinity Edge will now be purchasable as a second item. Riot is lowering the required crit chance to activate Infinity Edge's passive from 60 to 40%. This will be a huge buff to ADCs who want to stack more AD than attack speed in their builds. Samira, Draven, and Jhin are a few ADCs we expect to thrive the most off these buffs. However, there could be many more that benefit as well. Builds are going to see a massive shakeup for this patch, so we will be sure to keep you guys updated in future videos with what ends up being the most optimal. Quick Blades will receive the exact same treatment as Infinity Edge, having its required crit lowered from 60 to 40%. Xayah and Lucian are two we expect to benefit the most from these buffs. However, the real winners are likely non-bot lane carries. Gangplank and Tryndamere are ones to watch for 13.2, as they are actually even better users of Quick Blades than most ADCs. Gangplank's entire core build is being buffed this patch, as Essence Reaver will have its AD increased from 45 to 55, while cost of the item goes from 2,800 to 2,900 gold. Even though the cost is going up by 100, this is a net buff, as 10 AD is worth about 350 gold. Other than Gangplank, Draven, Ezreal, Rengar, Lucian, and Shaco are the champs who build Essence Reaver the most, and will see a nice spike in power. Draven is definitely going to be a sleeper pick to watch this patch, as 2 of his main items are seeing buffs. Another change that positively affects Draven are buffs to Bloodthirster. Cost of Bloodthirster is being reduced from 3,400 to 3,200 gold. Lifesteal is going from 18 to 15%. To compensate, the shield is up from 50 scaling to 320, scaling from level 1 to 180 scaling to 450, scaling from level 9. More durability in exchange for less sustain is more often than not a net positive change, especially when you're playing into an enemy comp with heavy dive. Other than Aphelios, there are very few champions who build BT, but Samira, Draven, and Misfortune may begin to incorporate it a lot more. It will be interesting to see if a no-mythic Draven build pops up this patch, which would consist of an Essence Reaver rush into Infinity Edge second and Bloodthirster third. Demonic Embrace has been arguably the most OP item in recent patches, so a nerf to melee champs is in order. Max health burn damage for melee champs is going from 1.8 to 1.6%. Ranged champs will actually see a buff, as the max health burn for them is going from 0.8 to 1%. Next up, we have a bunch of fighter and assassin item changes, starting with Eclipse. Eclipse is having its Omnivamp removed, but in exchange will now have 15 ability haste, while the shield cooldown is lowered from 8 for melee and 16 for ranged to 6 for melee and 12 for ranged. Even though sustain is being completely removed, the pure snowball power of Eclipse is going up. 15 added haste and a lower shield cooldown is going to allow for more windows of opportunity when you get ahead. Gore Drinker is having its mythic passive revamped, as it will no longer grant 7 ability haste, but instead provide 50 health plus 3 ability haste per legendary item. Ravenous Hydra has got a hold of some sort of record for the item change the most amount of times in a limited time frame. Riot will be adjusting the vamp on the item from Omnivamp to Lifesteal. This means most of your abilities will no longer be able to heal you, as only autos and on-hit effects will proc Lifesteal. This is definitely a nerf, so to compensate, the ability haste of Ravenous is going from 20 to 25. Cleave damage will now also trigger Lifesteal. Maw will receive a pretty massive overhaul, as the AD is up from 55 to 65, haste is being completely removed, and the lifeline effect is going from 10% Omnivamp to 12% Lifesteal. The loss of 20 haste is pretty massive here, and even though you're getting an extra 10 AD, that 20 haste is worth a lot more based on gold value. Overall, we see these changes as net nerfs to Maw. Death's Dance is being targeted as well, with its AD going from 55 to 65, armor from 45 to 50, but the haste is completely gone, and the takedown healing bonus AD ratio is going from 120 to 50%. So overall, 10 AD and 5 armor for the loss of 15 ability haste, and takedown healing AD ratio being sliced considerably. Black Cleaver is being flat out buffed, with its AD going from 45 to 50 and health up from 350 to 400. With Death's Dance being hit, Cleaver will rise in priority, especially when playing into tankier comps. All Grievous Wounds items will have their debuff value increased from 25 to 40%. To compensate for the buff, many of the items are seeing nerfs. Oblivion Orb will have its AP reduced from 35 to 30. Chemtech Putrefier's ability haste is being reduced from 20 to 15, AP going from 60 to 40, while 8% heal and shield power is being added. So much of the value from Chemtech now lies in its Grievous Wounds application, so if the enemy comp does not have healing, the item will be such a bait purchase from now on. Morello's health is being reduced from 300 to 200, while 10 magic penetration is being added. Nothing here changes the fact Morello is a terrible item to complete, and you should just sit on Oblivion Orb if you really need the healing reduction. Chempunk Chainsword's AD is going down from 20 to 15. Same thing here with Executioner's Calling, as its AD is being lowered from 20 to 15. Bramble Vest is actually being buffed, with its Thorns damage going from 4 to 6. Thornmail will see an increase in power as well, with its Thorns armor ratio going from 20 to 25%. So even though many ADC items are buffed, tanks becoming stronger will lessen the power of those buffs. Mortal Reminder is receiving a mini rework, as the cost is going from 2600 to 3000. Movement speed and attack speed are removed, but you'll now have 30% armor penetration. Lastly, Lord Doms will be flat out buffed, with its AD going from 30 to 35. Moving on to the top lane champion changes, we have a couple direct nerfs for Gangplank. AD growth is going from 4 to 3.7, while E bonus damage on critical strikes is down from 10 to 5%. Since both Essence Reaver and Quick Blades are buffed this patch, we don't expect these direct nerfs to have a significant impact on GP's power. We'll be keeping Gangplank in the S tier for now, but we'll be sure to keep a close eye on how he performs throughout the patch. For the top lane tier list, it's Jax, Darius, and Shen as the most optimal carries. There are a bunch of important things to pay attention to for many top laners this patch. With Death's Dance nerfed, it's going to open things up for Sterix to really shine as a second purchase. Darius, for example, has already been performing better with Sterix even before the Death's Dance nerfs, so definitely be looking to try Sterix second in 13.2. Black Cleaver buffs are going to lead to a nice spike in power for Urgot, Illaoi, Gnar, Riven, and Wukong. Many Urgot players have actually been rushing Black Cleaver in recent patches, so he's going to be loving the buffs and moving into the S tier. Tryndamere is going to be a massive winner, as the Quick Blades change will positively affect him. Best low elo top laners of the patch are Jax, Garen, and Nasus. Highest on our ban list for top lane are Fiora, Darius, and Jax. The tree has been absolutely terrorizing the Rift in recent patches, so some much needed nerfs are on the way. Q bonus damage to monsters is going from 120 scaling to 200 to 100 scaling to 180. E bonus health ratio drops from 6 to 5%, while EAP ratio is down as well from 40 to 35%. Empowered sapling damage will receive a similar treatment. So is this the end of Maokai jungle? Not likely, as the Q damage to monsters will still be higher than what it was a few patches back before it was originally buffed. When you factor in the Demonic Embrace nerfs as well though, we don't expect Mao to be an OP jungler anymore. We'll be shifting Mao from OP and into S on the tier list. Next up, we have a few nerfs for another recently OP jungler, being Udyr. Our base damage per tick is going from 10 scaling to 60 to 10 scaling to 55. Q bonus physical damage will have its bonus AD ratio lowered from 5 to 4%. Q bonus attack speed, however, is being increased from 20 scaling to 70 to 20 scaling to 80. All in all, these nerfs are very light considering Udyr's current power level. By no means will Udyr be falling out of the meta, but when factoring in the demonic nerfs, he will be moving down one tier from OP into S. Kindred can potentially benefit from the Infinity Edge, Blade, and Black Cleaver buffs this patch, so Riot will be giving them a direct nerf. Q physical damage is being lowered by 10 at all ranks. We wouldn't be surprised if Kindred becomes slightly weaker off the back of these nerfs, as you're definitely going to be weaker for at least the first 20 minutes. It's all going to come down to how impactful the item changes end up being, which is hard to predict, so we will be leaving Kindred in S tier for now, and we'll keep you updated for our mid-patch tier list if anything changes. Lilia is the lone jungler buffed for 13.2, as her passive, Q, and E are all being changed. Passive magic damage scaling is going from 1.2 to 1.5%. Q AP ratio is up from 40 to 45%. E AP ratio is going from 45 to 60%. E cooldown also drops from 16 at all ranks to 14 seconds. We also have to take into account that Lilia will be negatively affected by the demonic nerfs, so that's going to limit the positive implications of these buffs. With that said, we see Lilia becoming a tad stronger, but nothing to push her back into meta, as she will be placed in the B tier. Taking a look at the jungle tier list, we have Elise, Zac, and Fiddlesticks as the most optimal carries. With Maokai and Udyr nerfed, it makes room for Fiddle to move up this patch, as he's been a very sleeper jungler in previous patches. Although Zac runs Demonic Embrace, he usually doesn't purchase it until later on in the game, so he won't be affected nearly as much as Maokai and Udyr, who like to rush the item. Rammus will be one to watch in 13.2, and moving back into the A tier as the Thornmail and Bramble buffs will be quite influential. Keep in mind, Rammus actually likes to rush Thornmail, so he's getting immediate benefit from those changes, whereas most champs don't pick up the item until 2nd or 3rd. So many junglers will also be affected by the Death's Dance and Maw nerfs, so we will be sure to keep you guys in the loop if any new builds pop up throughout the patch. The best low elo carries for jungle are Fiddle, Mordekaiser, and Zac. Highest value jungle bans of the patch are Sylas, Elise, and Zac. Kassadin nerfs are no surprise, as the champ has been a dominant OP tier pick over the last few patches. E cooldown is being targeted as it's dropping from 21 scaling to 13 seconds to 21 scaling to 17 seconds. A 4-second nerf at max rank is actually pretty big, considering Cass does not have access to a ton of ability haste in his core build. As a result, we'll be demoting Cass from his OP tier position and moving him into S for 13.2. Ryze mains had one whole patch to abuse their champion, with a 50% win rate, as Riot will be having none of that, nerfing him to ensure he's back down in the 40s. Base magic resistance is going from 36 to 32. Passive increased max mana is down from 10% per 100 AP to 6% per 100 AP. Of course, these nerfs are targeted towards pro play, as Ryze priority has become extremely high. To be fair though, we don't expect these buffs to completely kill Ryze. Ryze will be placed in the B tier as a champion you can make work if you put the time in, but there are definitely easier and more optimal champs above him. Orianna will be looking to make a push back into meta for the first time in a while for 13.2. Passive and Q will both receive some quality of life buffs. Riot will be changing how Orianna's passive scales with levels, while her Q damage after the first target hit is being adjusted. W mana cost is buffed, going from 70 scaling to 110 to 70 scaling to 90. R magic damage is up from 200 scaling to 350 to 250 scaling to 450. R AP ratio is increased as well, from 80 to 90%. Ori has actually been creeping back into a decent spot due to recent Archangel's buffs, so these direct changes will help push her up into a good A tier position. Instead of tweaking some of Zoe's numbers, Riot will be flat out giving her a new feature to her E. From now on, enemies inflicted with sleep from Zoe's E will have their magic resist reduced by 20 scaling to 30%. Pick power and ability to burst off successful bubble lands will become so much stronger now. Zoe will be following suit with Ori and locking down a respectable A tier slot for 13.2. Just one champion above all else for mid lane in 13.2, as Anivia will be holding the only OP tier spot. Rod and Archangel's buffs have been incredible for Anivia and the driving factors to her rise. Watch out for Zed in 13.2, as the Eclipse changes will be really nice for him. Pantheon mid is one sleeper champ that can also look to benefit greatly from the new snowball power that has been added to Eclipse. As a matter of fact, Pantheon actually builds Black Cleaver as his second item as well, so with the Cleaver buffs, Panth is going to be highly underrated moving forward. Jace is another slept-on mid laner that has become super strong due to recent direct buffs, so with the Eclipse changes, we will be moving him into S tier. Our top 3 low elo recommendations for mid lane are Swain, Malz, and Heimerdinger. Kassadin, Anivia, and Vex are some of the best mid lane bans. While many ADCs will be receiving buffs to their base mana this patch, Lucian is the lone ADC nerfed. Base mana is going from 349 to 320. Mana growth is up from 38 to 43. Base mana regen is going from 8.18 to 7. Mana regen growth is up from 0.7 to 0.8. This is without a doubt a nerf to Lucian's early game, but will end up as a buff post level 11. Considering Essence Reaver and Quick Blade's buffs will be positively affecting Lucian, we don't see these changes lowering his power level for solo queue. A tier is where Lucian will remain on the tier list. For the ADC tier list, the most powerful carries of the patch include Draven, Xayah, and Samira. Draven can literally benefit from 4 of the ADC item changes, as Eclipse, Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and Bloodthirster are all items he likes to buy. Same goes for Samira, but to a slightly lesser degree, as she's a champ that can implement both IE and BT into her builds, so we expect her to be a very strong option. As for Xayah, Essence Reaver and Quick Blade's buffs are massive, and she was already performing super well due to recent direct buffs. A plethora of ADCs are also receiving mana buffs this patch, being Ashe, Caitlyn, Ezreal, Jhin, Jinx, Kai'Sa, Misfortune, Senna, Sivir, Twitch, and Xayah. A few names we don't see on that list who are already in pretty bad spots include Vayne, Kalista, and Aphelios. It looks like Riot intends to keep those champions in the gutter for now, so definitely be looking to stay away. The most optimal low elo ADCs of the patch are Tristana, Misfortune, and Jhin. Draven, Xayah, and Samira are all really good ban choices. Everyone but Yuumi mains can rejoice, as the Reckoning Riot has slammed down on the cat is a beautiful sight to see. Attack range is going from 500 to 425. Base AD is down from 55 to 49. Base health has dropped from 550 to 500. Base health regen drops from 7 to 5. Passive will now grant you 25 bonus range for that attack only. Passive shield strength is lowered from 60, scaling to 380, to 45, scaling to 300. W scaling is going from 12, scaling to 20%, down to 6, scaling to 10%. EAP ratio on the movement speed buff is being completely removed. What an absolute massacre and a surefire way to ensure Yuumi becomes the worst support in the game. There's really nothing more to say than stay away from Yuumi if you care about climbing in 13.2. Heimer's support has been an OP pick for a while now, so Riot's looking to tone him down for 13.2. Turret health is going from 175, scaling to 700, to 130, scaling to 640. W magic damage is down by 10 at all ranks. W AP ratio is up from 45 to 55%. Nothing too major here, and if anything, this may just shift a priority over to a Q max first instead of W. We will be moving Heimer from OP into S, but still expect him to be a really strong support option. Although Nami on her own has not been performing at a level where she needs nerfs, the Lucian-Nami duo is extremely dominant, so Riot has to nerf Nami as a result. W magic damage is down by 10 at all ranks, while AP ratio is up from 50 to 55%. E damage per hit is down as well, going from 25 scaling to 85 to 20 scaling to 80. Since we are ranking Nami on the tier list based on her solo power level and not in consideration of her power with Lucian, Nami will be dropping into A tier for 13.2. For the complete support tier list, we have Amumu, Maokai, and Blitz locking down OP tier slots. These hard engaged melee supports like Amumu and Maokai are going to become even stronger this patch due to ADC item buffs. The team that can get their ADC ahead is going to be even more devastating in 13.2, so if you can play a good snowbally support, you're going to be rewarded a lot more. With Chemtech Putrefire being quite heavily nerfed, it's very important you're not autopilot purchasing the item. If the enemy team has a massive amount of healing, then of course pick it up, but if you don't actually need the healing reduction, the value of the item is so much worse now. Ardent, Staff of Flowing Water, and Redemption are all great alternatives for enchanters depending on the game. Our recommended low elo supports of the patch are Brand, Heimer, and Zyra. Amumu, Blitzcrank, and Maokai are who should be banned the most. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that wraps up everything for our 13.2 tier list update. Thank you all so much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and we will see you in the next one.